I will not take a lot of time on talking about how rural areas will look like in 2024. So we have the vision that will be published today. We had a lot of different discussions, a lot of different events where we presented. We were talking about digital innovation ecosystems, about data platforms that need to be interoperable, that the data can be combined and we can use different data sets, so from different countries, from different sectors, and so on and so on. We have talked about human-centric digital technology. So if we want to use the technologies, they need to be easy to use. They need to be also reliable, and so on and so on. When we were talking about digital technologies, we always say that we need to see both economic growth, but also social innovation. So the fuel should come also from the social ground, from the bottom. Then we know that we're dealing with some climate issues. I don't know what is like in your countries, but in Slovenia currently it's very, very hot. And there is a joke that the good news is that now it's hot, but the bad news that it's the coolest from the next year, so it's becoming even worse. So we need to see how we can use digital technologies for this climate risks mitigation as well. And of course, we were talking about the future of work, so how digital technologies can help. So these are what is our vision for how digital technologies will look like and will be used in the future. But 2040 is far away in one manner, and digital technologies develop a lot. So we cannot really speak about what kind of digital technologies will be used. What is more important is what these digital technologies, what kind of problems and issues they will solve. I will end up my presentations with some open questions because as you heard from Enrique, the point of this whole event, of this webinar, is discussion, so that we need to talk to each other. I would just go quickly from our work and experience what we have learned by working with the rural areas. The first thing is what we found out, that even when working with digital technologies, which most of the time are seen as technology innovations, it is very much important to see innovation broadly. So to see also social innovation from the rural areas, to see that this innovation needs to be open, which means to involve all different stakeholders. It is very important that it's community-led, because the problem with digital technologies is people are most of the time afraid to use the digital technologies, and because they don't know how to use them. So if this innovation is community-led, it means that it comes out from their needs, from their problems, and it is much, much more easier to implement in their work and daily life. And also, it is important to understand that technology can be data-led, which means it can come from the data as well. So when we are speaking about innovation in rural areas, we must understand there are so many different kinds of innovation, and not only company-led innovation, companies that are in the rural areas, or just this technology innovation. And another thing is, when we speak about technology in rural areas, usually people can only see precision farming or technology used in agriculture. But when we're speaking about rural areas, they're much more than just agriculture. So we need to see how digital technologies can be used in other fields as well, such as, for example, e-education. So we all saw how important this was in the last couple of months when we were all at home lockdown. Then about e-health, so in the sector of health, of medicine, of social care as well. But even for cultural and creative industries, there were so many good examples where museums and other cultural organizations in the rural areas, using digital technologies, were able to stay open, or even to increase their users, which they were somehow afraid that they might close down. Another thing is, when we're speaking about digital technologies, also to look the opportunities for new business models. This is an example from Slovenia, where winemakers from one rural area during the lockdown, they connected together in a wine hub. So they did a cooperative, so they did a common brand, they connected in a wine hub, and then they started selling a service, so virtual wine tasting, which means they were sending their wines first within their own region, then they started within whole Slovenia, and just last in this month they also did such event internationally. So they joined together with winemakers also from France and from Spain, and they started selling their service and somehow promoting their products or their wine internationally. So we can see that this technology can be used not only for new products, but also for new business models. It is important to see that even when we are speaking about technology, we need to have the people. When we are introducing digital technologies or whatever is new, we need to find this, we say local heroes. Yesterday I was at the event where they said energy point. So we need to have someone who is promoting, who is raising awareness about what digital technologies can do, and somehow raises the interest within their community. Very much important is we need to work about the digital skills and innovative skills as well. So we saw that there are many different gaps also in the previous presentation, generational gaps, gender gaps, rural-urban gaps, and so on and so on. And we can see that in the rural areas, usually the skills are at lower level. So we need to find a way how to address this challenge as well. For all of that, it is very important to have digital innovation ecosystems. So there, the European Commission is doing a lot of different activities to promote digital innovation ecosystems. They're building also a network of European digital innovation hubs. But what they're forgetting is the rural areas again, who are already lagging behind the urban areas. So we believe and we ask the European Commission not to forget about the rural areas as well. So to fund digital innovation hubs to provide opportunities for such hubs in the rural areas as well. We're moving to my last two slides. I really enjoyed the presentation from the coordinator of DESIRA, who presented their general principles in the policy about the digital transformation. So their general principles from DESIRA are on the right, and I'm also part of a project called Smart Villages, which is implemented under Interreg Alpine Space Program, and we did our own recommendation. You can see the recommendation on the left. So in both cases, we have 7 different kinds of recommendations. And today we already heard that the European Commission will publish the document, the long-term vision for rural communities. So we have a lot of work already done. Also in my group, we have published a paper about the existing, the past, and the future policies. This is the part where I would like to finish the presentation and then to start the discussion with all of you. We know what is needed in the future for the digital futures of the rural areas as a whole. So also in this presentation, we saw that the rural areas are much more than agriculture and forestry. We need to see them holistically. We have done our analysis. We know what kind of policies are needed, but what we need to do now is to get more concrete. So which means that we need to answer the following 3 questions. Who should do what, and who is the best to do what, either at European level or at regional or national level. Then when these things should be done. We're speaking about long-term vision of rural Europe, but this doesn't mean that we have now 20 years time to do things. So we need to make the steps when, what activity, and so on and so on, and then how these things needs to be done. So what we would like where we would like to continue now is to set also targets. So also Mr. Velasco at the beginning of today's session webinar, he said how many people in Europe are living in the rural areas. So when we were speaking about what needs to be done in the policies in the rural areas, we need to set clear targets. We heard about the broadband, but we need to do that for the other things, for the skills, for the innovation ecosystems for the companies, and so on and so on. And of course, to set the responsibility. So again, who needs to do what? And here I stop with my presentation, and I hope that we will find at least some of the answers to these questions.